the national anthem.
Good afternoon. Every time I hear that national anthem, it just makes my heart swell. I love it. Anin Jalasi. Firstly, I'd like to welcome you to Mi'kmaq territory that I have called home since 1995. It's important that we acknowledge not only does the University of King's College sit on traditional Mi'kmaq territory, but to also acknowledge that it sits on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Nitisnikasmiskwiganukwe. Dodem Wakwanin, Kiskun Anishinaabe Kwe. My common name is Jerry Musquo LeBlanc, and I am a mother and a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. My community here in Jabuktuk considers me an elder. To be considered by others as an elder is a great honor and comes with the responsibility of being a knowledge keeper. To me, that term is an anomaly. The most sacred duty of an elder is to pass traditional knowledge on, not to keep it. All elders have their own speciality. As far as I know, Creator did not bless one person to know everything. So here we are at this Mawiomi. Most of you probably think that the Mawiomi means a gathering or a celebration and or a powwow. You are partly correct. The Mi'kmaq consider a gathering a Mawiomi. So this afternoon we're here at this Mawiomi to celebrate the installation of William Leahy as the 25th President and Vice-Chancellor. I've had the distinct honor of working with King's College earlier this semester. The forward-thinking of faculty involved having an Indigenous elder welcome and say a prayer to students on Moving In Day. It is these small steps that assist us all move toward reconciliation. We are all learning just as our ancestors did. When the administration shows it is accepting of new teachings, it is accepting of old traditions and customs, it tells me that the graduates leaving this institution will be more prepared for the real world. I'd now like to say a prayer. And when I pray to my Creator. I invite you to talk to who it is you talk to when you pray. Great Spirit and good Creator of all things, we honor you with this prayer. We are the descendants of the many peoples you so long ago chose to live in harmony on Turtle Island. We give thanks for allowing us all to gather here today. Good Creator, more than ever, we need your strength, guidance, and truth. Give us the ability to recognize and use the gifts and teachings you have provided. Help us pass the virtues of respect and sharing to others. We direct our attention to the life forces on Mother Earth. She has given birth to all animal creatures and to all plants that nourish us. For this we give thanks. We ask that you help those who are experiencing difficulty and conflict in their lives find peace and comfort. We pray for our Mother Earth so that she may recover from the many sores we have inflicted upon her. We pray for the good of our nations, our communities, our families, our elders, our leaders, and our medicine people. Creator, we humbly ask for your help so that the treaties between nations be respected, protected, and honored as they were intended for as long as the sun shines, the rivers flow, and the grass grows. Kichimanito, we promise to work together so that all steps we take will become the path of peace for future generations. Walaliok. Amen.
How fortunate we are that our elder has created the perfect context for the praying of our college prayer. O God, who hast taught us to hold fast that which is good, we give thee humble thanks for all our benefactors and for the lives and good examples of all who have truly served thee here, beseeching thee to make us worthy to follow in their steps. Keep us under the protection of thy good providence. Bless us as thou alone canst bless. Prosper us as thou alone canst prosper. And guard us as thou alone canst guard. Let not the wicked prevail against our habitation, but let our university stand as a fortress of truth and purity and right. Take from us all that may hinder godly union and concord, that we may with one mind and one mouth glorify thee. Amen. Shalom. Salem.
Placet Domino Cancelario et huic dignissimae convocatione ut supplicatio venerabilis congregationis regentium de inauguratione Guglielmi Lahey, more solito nominati accipiator.
Placet. Et negotia procedamus.
Legat orator excerptum actorum congregationis regentium quibus continentur electio praedicta viri doctissimi.
Excerpt from the minutes of the Board of Governors of the University of King's College, February 19th, 2016. Motion that the board approve the recommendation of the Presidential Search Committee to offer the appointment of President and Vice-Chancellor of the University of King's College to William Leahy for a renewable term to commence on the 1st of July, 2016, concluding the 30th of June, 2021, subject to negotiation of an appropriate contract. Motion carried. Domine Cancellari, praesento tibi Guglielmum Leahy, baccalaureum artium et jurisprudentiae, legum magistrem, quius electio rite nuperime attestata est, ut admetator ad munus officiaque praesidis et vice cancellarii collegii regalis.
Guglielmi Leahy, fidem dabis et observandum omnia statutia privilegia consuetudinis liberatesque huis universitatis comelius floriant bona doctrina moresque purissimi.
Dabo fidem Deo eloquente. Ego Guillermus Leahy, tu fidem quo e omnie diligente e fideliter, et sequa, qua ad officium, presidius e vici concalaria, collegii, regalis spectant. Sicut me Deus, aduat e sancta, eva Gallia.
Gilime actoritate mia et totius universitatis te admittote in munis praesidius et vice cancelare regalis omnibus iulibus ornatum et impero ut statum in celum constitueris in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Paperwork complete. We present to the Board of Governors, the faculty, the students, the alumni, the staff, and other friends of the university, our new president, duly installed, and ask for him your loyal support and your cooperation.
Mr. Chancellor, honored guests, and colleagues, I'm delighted to offer warm greetings and congratulations to you, William Leahy, on behalf of the University of King's College on this wonderful occasion of your installation as President and Vice-Chancellor. We welcome you as a member of our community and pledge our support for God, the law, the Queen, and the people.
I too congratulate William Leahy, President, University of King's College, on behalf of the Board of Governors, and actually copy exactly what Kim said. She said it all so well. Congratulations, Mr. President.
It would be improper if a member of faculty were not loquacious. Just over a century ago, a great masterwork of the 20th century called The Rite of Spring had its infamous premiere in Paris. And yes, I do mention this because The Rite of Spring has from time to time been reenacted in the King's Quad. Around the same time, and as an expression of the same Renaissance spirit, Georges Braque and Pablo Picasso invented the art form called the collage, which consisted of collecting theater tickets, cigarette papers, bits of journals and newspapers, and gluing all this higgledy-piggledy-poke onto a canvas or frame. What King's needs from its new president is not a 21st century collage, but that form of government which will create here a true college, a collegial environment in which all of us are forged to a common purpose, dedicated to principles of learning and education, but also of comradeship, duty, and service. Most of all, the enhancement of these students that we are so lucky to welcome to our college as matriculated members. There is talk in our service of installation of morals and virtues, which seems very old-fashioned, but we have no greater treasure to offer these students than the discipline that collegial learning can provide. We do talk a lot about the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle here, and we are indeed guided by his teaching that virtue is instilled by the doing of virtuous things. If we are to have a college where we are able to do virtuous things together, which is to say collegially, then we make a very profound demand of our new president. Certainly, one of the key features of William Leahy's presidency will be to serve as an ambassador for the University of King's College. Of the greatest diplomats and envoys, it has always been said, they must be both themselves and more than themselves. So at this solemn installation, in which the faculty welcome you as their new president, we actually lay on you this heavy burden, which is, while always remaining true to yourself, we also need you to be more than yourself, so that you, with us, can foster and enable that spirit of collegiality which we all need at this mother of a university. I now call upon Dolly McIntyre. Please welcome the president.
Members of the King's community, on behalf of the staff, I am pleased to welcome and congratulate our new president and Vice-Chancellor, Professor William Leahy. We are excited to have you and your family here on campus with us. Looking forward to the future of King's. Oh, and good thing there's no Blue Jays game on right now.
Hello. On behalf of the students at the University of King's College, we congratulate and welcome President Leahy, his family, and his dog Casey onto campus, a home that we now all share. Your active presence in the King's community over the last number of months has not gone unnoticed, and we look forward to getting to know you even better and the work that I'm sure we will accomplish over the rest of my term and the term of the next president to come. Congratulations again.
(2016) marks the 170th anniversary of the University of King's College Alumni Association, the oldest alumni association in Canada. But don't break out the walkers just yet. We are in fine form. All you have to do is look at the 25 events that are planned next week in different locations around the globe to celebrate this anniversary, from Corner Brook to Whitehorse, and from London to Bahrain. Alumni everywhere have maintained strong ties with this university. We all share fond memories of our time here at King's and care deeply about its future. So on behalf of alumni near and far, Mr. President, we congratulate you. We welcome you to our close-knit King's community. We look forward to working with you, and supporting King's.
It is a very great honor to have so many distinguished and respected colleagues from Dalhousie present at this such important occasion for King's. But most of all, we thank the president of Dalhousie for making the time to be with us today and to make the day as special as it really is. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. President Leahy, it gives me great pleasure on behalf of our University, Dalhousie, and so many of our faculty are here, but on behalf of the Board of Governors and the Senate of Dalhousie, we are very honored to join with other institutions of higher learning today to congratulate you on this occasion of these celebrations marking your installation as President and Vice-Chancellor, and to extend our very best wishes to the University of King's College. If you read the history of Dalhousie and King's, you realize that our past and indeed our futures are intertwined like family. I've had the great pleasure of working with Bill in his role as faculty member in our Schulich School of Law, and I sincerely look forward to working with you, Bill, to strengthen our ongoing and very important collaboration between Dalhousie and King's College. Congratulations and thank you.
And we have greetings from some sister institutions. We're very honored that you would take the time to be with us today. We proceed traditionally in terms of year of founding. So Dr. Eddie Campbell would be presenting in absentia the greetings of the University of New Brunswick. Dr. Summerby Murray, a great friend of King's, we hope you remain so as president of St. Mary's University. Please come up and give your greetings.
Friends gathered here in this tremendously positive celebration, it's a delight for me to bring greetings from St. Mary's University to our sister university in Halifax, the University of King's College. All the very best to your new President and Vice-Chancellor, with whom I have worked already over several months in his presidency and indeed in the years past. I'm looking forward, of course, to many positive years ahead for our joint relationship. Congratulations to you, Professor Leahy.
Very honored to have a representative of Mount Allison University, Ms. Carol Sanqua, also in absentia. However, Dr. Ramona Lumpkin of our distinguished sister university, Mount St. Vincent, will now give greetings.
On behalf of my university, Mount St. Vincent University, we are delighted to welcome Bill Leahy into our community and to watch with great pride and pleasure the very fine work that I'm sure he will accomplish here at this distinguished university, the University of King's College.
Mount Allison University, please come up this way.
On behalf of Mount Allison University, it is indeed a pleasure to be here to congratulate President Leahy. We have a special connection at Mount Allison. I am the Director of Alumni Relations, and since both your Chancellor and your President are alumni of our institution, we think you have great taste. And congratulations, Bill. We're really proud of you, and your friends are really proud of you.
Professor Diane Taylor-Gearing, representing the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design University, it's a great pleasure to welcome President Leahy. I have had the opportunity to work with him these past few months, and we really look forward to enjoying very good relations and continued collegiality with the Nova Scotia presidents. The former president, George Cooper, made me feel very welcome when I joined NASCAD 2 years ago, and for that I'm grateful. Thank you and congratulations.
And an institution with which we have special relations, the Atlantic School of Theology, is represented by the Reverend Neil Bennett.
We have indeed a special relationship with King's. King's is one of our parent universities, along with Pine Hill Divinity Hall and Holy Heart Seminary. King's is one of the roots of the Atlantic School of Theology tree, as it were. And I have another connection with Bill in that he is the chair of the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Public Affairs, which is a joint initiative of St. Mary's University and AST. And so it is with great warmth and good wishes that we offer our congratulations to King's and to Bill.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, additional greetings have been received for this installation of you as our 25th president from the University of New Brunswick, 1785, Victoria University, 1836, the Royal Military College of Canada, 1876, the University of Manitoba, 1877, HEC, Montreal, 1907, Mount Royal University, 1910, St. Thomas University, 1910, Wilfrid Laurier University, 1911, Memorial University of Newfoundland, 1925, Emily Carr University of Art and Design, 1925, Cape Breton University, 1951, University of Waterloo, 1957, York University, 1959, Guelph University, 1964, Thompson Rivers University, 1970, Concordia University, 1974, University of the Fraser Valley, 1974, KPU Kwantlen Polytechnic University, 1981, and the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, 2002, as well as the Association of Atlantic Universities and Universities of Canada. There was much discussion as to how we would proceed with the shape note singing. Various titles and opportunities were pursued, including Adoration, which perhaps is a little early in the game. And unfortunately, we settled on Sweet Morning, should be Sweet Afternoon. We invite the 25th President of the University of King's College to address Convocation.
Thank you, everyone. We've come to the part of the proceedings where I've been installed, so obviously I'm very happy. I'm also very happy because there's no Latin after this that I have to try to speak for the rest of the proceedings. Whenever I'm asked to speak Latin in this institution, I feel like I should apologize to all Romans in the audience after I'm finished. And there might be some Romans in the audience at King's. I'm looking at the a crowd, looking at all of you, and I feel very validated for myself, and I feel very validated for King's, because all constituencies of King's are represented. My new friends and colleagues at King's, here together with my family, and so many people who are friends and colleagues from other parts of my life. And to see you all together is wonderful. People from government, my academic colleagues, Efficiency Nova Scotia, the Health Research Foundation, the old neighborhood in Rockingham, and there's some hockey players out there too, from Beer League Hockey. So to see you all together here for me and for King's and for education is a wonderful, validating thing. So thank you to everyone for coming today. Students, alumni, faculty, staff, friends of the university, and distinguished guests. It is truly an honor to become your 25th president and a member of this generous community. Thank you, Chancellor Kevin Lynch and Chair Dale Godsoe, and my fellow governors for entrusting me, and it is a trust, with the stewardship of King's. I express my appreciation for the 24 presidents who led this college before me, and for my immediate predecessor, George Cooper, who is with us today. Thank you. I welcome Bishop Ronald Cutler. It is a characteristic of King's that while we continue to evolve as a secular university, our connection to the Anglican Church continues to be foundational to our identity. The duality is well captured in our chapel, and more importantly, in the chapel community, a center of worship, but also of activity, outreach, and friendship for students, faculty, and staff of all spiritual beliefs and all traditions. I thank Elder Jerry Musqua LeBlanc, who has welcomed us to Mi'kmaq territory. King's does stand on the traditional land of the Mi'kmaq, and we are all called to be treaty people. Also present, as I mentioned earlier, are colleagues from other universities, including President Richard Florzone from Dalhousie, all of whom have been incredibly helpful to me and therefore to King's in my first few months in office. And it is a pleasure to see the faces of many colleagues from my life as a law professor, both from the law school and from across Dalhousie, including faculties of management, health professions, medicine, the College of Sustainability, and of course, the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And I want to extend my warmest welcome to our colleague and chief collaborator, Frank Harvey, the Dean of the Faculty. The importance of the relationship enjoyed by King's and Dalhousie cannot be overstated. It is critical to our very existence as a college in the Oxbridge model. Under that model, a college exists to enrich the life of a larger university, while the larger university supports the college as a distinct community. I thank our honorary degree recipients, Dr. Tracy Lindbergh and soon-to-be Dr. Patrick Graham, for gracing our proceedings. I am thrilled you are each being celebrated as part of my installation. Thank you very much. There are also, as I said before, many friends from virtually every dimension of my life here to lend support. Thank you very much. It is my particular pleasure to welcome my family. I'm especially proud to have this opportunity to recognize my father, Raymond, and to thank both my parents for setting me on the path that leads to this day. With all my heart, I want to thank my wife, Catherine, and Elizabeth, and Joseph, and Claire, our children. They cheerfully agreed, or in the case of the children, almost cheerfully, agreed to exchange their happy lives on Linwood Drive for what seemed to them an uncertain proposition, life inside a college. But the experience has been wonderful. We feel that we have been welcomed home. Casey has already been mentioned. Casey has already forged strong friendships with many people, including Greta Hamilton, who carried the mace today. Casey has friends all over campus. Not long ago, I encountered our Masters of Ceremonies, Dr. Thomas Kern, in the quad, while walking in the quad. And that's where we bump into each other at King's. As we chatted, a steady stream of students walked over. They were polite to myself and Dr. Kern, but it was obvious that they were really more interested in Casey. When we parted, Dr. Kern left me with some thoughts of advice that I might paraphrase as follows. Keep doing what you are doing, but for heaven's sakes, don't let anything happen to that dog. Living here in the college, right next to the chapel, and down the hallway from the senior common room, has revealed to us the critical importance, both symbolic and practical, of the president and the president's family living in the college, along with the dean of students and others. With the students. Since my arrival, I have spent time with students, faculty, staff, alumni, and board members, formally and informally. And a highlight has been meeting and getting to know our extraordinary students in the quad, at sporting and social events, in foundation year program lectures, where I'm learning as much as they are, I'm sure, and in Prince Hall. All around me, I am blessed to enjoy the collegiality of so many intelligent, motivated, and creative people who are dedicated to the transformational power that a King's education offers. It benefits the student and our society. It leads to knowledge and character that is the foundation of a society that is free and democratic and more just and more prosperous. I am coming to understand the distinct and wonderfully quirky community that is King's College, a university that somehow also manages to be a college. Or are we a college while also being a university? It doesn't matter, because it works. In that special King's way, we are happy to entertain two seemingly contradictory ideas, confident we can defer reconciliation indefinitely. Or we can leave the matter to be resolved into a higher truth someday through the dialectical process. Our campus is undergoing renewal, which will continue. The renovation of North Pole Bay is complete. The lodge, the pit theater, and now the famous wardroom have all been freshly renovated, thanks to generous alumni and other friends. And each has been remodeled in a very King's way that makes our campus feel both new and unchanged. So here I am, educated and deeply fond of the Oxbridge tradition, fortunate enough to be the president of a jewel of a college in that tradition. I am irrevocably and fully for King's. I am, as they say, all in. I know that although I may be expected to make changes happen, I'm very aware that I'm in the process of being changed for the better by King's. King's has that impact on everyone. I know this community faces challenges and that it will be my role as the first among equals, the phrase we like to use at King's, to ensure we thrive in meeting those challenges while remaining true to our vision. and I intend to carry out that mission with your full participation. As president, I'm both open to and ready for anything, but I have some ideas about the ingredients of our success. We can ensure our interdisciplinary programs for which we are famous, including the Foundation Year program, continue to bring the study of philosophy together with the study of history, literature, the social sciences, and the arts. This is their true intent and important to their appeal. With Dalhousie, we can be leaders in overcoming the false division between the humanities and the sciences. We know that a person holistically and deeply educated in the liberal arts is educated in the literature and thought of both. We can build the profile of our School of Journalism as an institution that excels at two important tasks. First, integrating the skills and technologies of a rapidly changing media world with the foundational knowledge that makes journalism vital to a free and democratic society. And second, being a focal point for critical inquiry, investigation, debate, and explanation of important issues. We must continue to make King's a wonderful place for faculty and staff to build fulfilling careers by aligning their professional objectives with their contributions to our students and the college. We can strengthen the already wonderful opportunities King's provides for a rich and fulfilling student experience that encompasses the arts and, we're in a gym, the athletics. We can bring more diversity into our college. We must bring more diversity into our college so that students from all communities have the opportunity to be transformed by a King's education and the opportunity to transform each other when they're at King's. To that end, we can and we must make it easier for young people from diverse backgrounds to choose King's. We can and we must answer the call from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to make university education everywhere a pathway to reconciliation with Canada's Indigenous peoples. We can continue the King's tradition of including contributions to the wider community in our mission. These include theater and music, social and political activism, welcoming and helping refugees, producing award-winning documentaries, and inspiring young people through organizations and processes such as the YouthNet. I'm optimistic and confident of our success because we excel in the face of challenge. We excel at creating and seizing opportunity. We will prevail, just as we have done throughout our history, whether the change in circumstance was the American Revolution, a catastrophic fire, or the need in the 1970s to essentially reinvent the college. We are, after all, the university that created the now famous Foundation Year program, which is still being copied by other universities, seeking a more immersive and holistic experience for their students. We, however, are still leading, with 3 honors programs that extend the FIP approach into the upper years of the undergraduate program. We were also one of the first universities in Canada to create a journalism school designed on the principle that journalism is the humanities in action. And we have recently built on our leadership in journalism to create Canada's only Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction. Think about it for a minute. Another apparent contradiction that works at King's. We will address the challenges of today, including the challenge of enrollment, as we have met the challenges of the past, by fulfilling both our academic mission and our mission as a college. We will draw on our chief advantages, the caliber of our students, our committed and talented faculty and staff, the success of our alumni, and the distinctive educational experience students gain through the King's Dalhousie Partnership. I am confident we are once more poised to evolve within the framework of the history, ideas, values, and character that makes us kings. And so, I call upon all of us, all those who study, teach, or work here, and all those who love and cherish Kings from within or beyond the Quad, to strive for unity of purpose and common effort for the benefit of Kings. And as we do that, we must live up to the reputation as a collaborative, collegial, and creative university community that we have earned. I intend to embody those qualities. Thank you again for the honor of inviting me and my family to join you on the journey. And as I said earlier, I'm all in. Thank you very much.
Domine Cancellari, praesento vobis Patricium Graham, ut admitator ad gradum doctoris in iure civili honoris causa. One wonders whether the young Patrick Graham, toiling away at his foundation year papers in the mid-1980s, had any notion that he would compose his future dispatches not in a cozy fug like that of a bay room at King's, but in the denser and certainly more dangerous atmospheres of war and revolution throughout the world. A freelance writer who has reported from some of the globe's hottest spots, Mr. Graham might be forgiven for foregoing the literary philosophical conundrums that challenged him in the FIP or in his subsequent degrees from Columbia and Dalhousie, where he completed an MA in classics. Yet the journalism he has produced over 3 decades betrays the early imprint. The man who famously snuck into post-9/11 Afghanistan disguised in a burqa, and who later spent a year with the Iraqi resistance in Fallujah, has a courageous thirst for inquiry that transcends present ephemera. Indeed, the Fippers of this hour, on the verge of completing their own brief tour of the ancient world, will recognize the strong traces of ancient thinking in Mr. Graham's 2012 memoir, The Man Who Went to War. In covering the revolution in Libya, Mr. Graham often casts his own experience and that of others in ancient Greek terms. He speaks of ecstasis, or standing outside of oneself, of Homeric thumos, the irrepressible desire in the young for self-expression and recognition, and of the inhumane isolation of the idios, the private citizen cut off from community, and thus his own emotions. Patrick Graham's journalism exemplifies complex analysis in a genre too often required to clarify the inherently opaque. He reported from Baghdad during the US invasion of Iraq as a correspondent for the London Observer. He has written for the National Post, The Walrus, and The Guardian, and is a sought-after commentator on radio and television. Among his recent achievements was an exclusive interview for the Globe and Mail with former Egyptian President Morsi before the military coup that deposed him in 2013. Among his numerous awards is an Overseas Press Club Award for his 2004 cover story on Fallujah in Harper's. He has also ventured into film as a co-writer of Afghan Luke, whose story is drawn in part from his experiences of reporting in Afghanistan. Like a one-man version of King's itself, Patrick Graham brings humanities and journalism together to inform the present with the past. And yet this student of the human condition, whose writing career began so auspiciously at King's, remains without a King's degree. Is it not fitting, Mr. Chancellor, that this Canadian Herodotus of our age be honored by the college whose mission he so admirably models? I therefore ask you, in the name of King's College, to bestow upon Patrick Graham the degree of Doctor of Civil Laws honoris causa.
Plecetne huic, convocatiori, et gradus doctoris in iure civili, convocatur practicium Graham. Plecetne vobis, Domini Doctoris.
Placet.
Plecetne vobis, magistri.
Placet.
Haec gratia concessa est, et sic pronuntio concessum. Auctoritate mea et totius universitatis admittute ad gradum doctoris in iure civili, Universitate Nostra Collegi Regalis. Your hood is coming. Admittute ad domum convocationis. Congratulations. It's wonderful to have you. Great to have you in the family.
Domine Conciliari, presento vobis Traciam Lindbergh, ut admitator ad gradum doctoris in iure civili honoris causa. Dr. Tracy Lindbergh's life and career could be seen as a continuing narrative of border crossing and boundary definition. A Cree citizen of the Assiniboine Nation, whose traditional lands are traversed by the Alberta, British Columbia provincial border, she gained her first degree in law from the University of Saskatchewan. She then passed over the international line to Massachusetts, where she's thought to be the first Indigenous woman from Canada to have earned a master's degree from the Harvard University Law School. A like accomplishment followed when she received a doctorate from the University of Ottawa, a degree honored with the Governor General's Gold Medal. Her doctoral dissertation was furthermore named nationwide best by the Canadian Association for Graduate Studies in Fine Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Indeed, the cross-disciplinary celebration of Tracy Lindbergh's talents was a harbinger of her subsequent career in writing and teaching. For while she's currently a professor in the University of Ottawa Faculty of Law, her work on Indigenous identity and Indigenous law, especially as they relate to concepts of personhood, sovereignty, and legal rights in contemporary Canada, has been no means confined to the quadrangle. She has worked with Indigenous spiritual leaders, elders, and community members to record and translate laws as well as in other areas of advocacy. And recently her work has gained even more widespread recognition in Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities alike through her fiction. Her best-selling and critically acclaimed novel Birdie, about the quest of a young Cree woman for recognition in dreamscape and landscape, was a shortlisted contender for CBC's Canada Reads 2016. Just last week, students in our own foundation year program studied the poet Virgil's account of the Roman Empire's beginning in the tragic collision of two peoples, the Trojans, warlike colonists from another continent, and the Latins of Italy, called Indigenae, an indigenous people, righteous not because of laws and restraints, but holding of their own free will to the way of life of their ancient God. From one point of view, the subsequent history of the Roman and of every other empire could be seen as the struggle of imperialized people to retrieve the righteousness of unwritten law and make it visible to those who would give laws to the world, but who cannot see past the unforgiving clarity of their own legislation. Tracy Lindbergh's academic work helps to dispel the myth of discovery and expose the barren fault lines between indigenous and colonialist concepts of law. Her creative work uses a new poetics that carries indigenous story tradition and language patterns to the novelistic form, a fusion that brings all of her readers closer to indigenous experience in Canada today. For her achievements in the letter and spirit of the law, Mr. Chancellor, no less than in revelatory story, I ask you, in the name of King's College, to bestow upon Dr. Tracy Lindbergh the degree of Doctor of Civil Laws, honoris causa.
Plecetne huic convocationi ut gradus doctoris in iure civili convocatur Thracium Lindbergh. Plecetne vobis Domini Doctoris. Plecetne vobis Magistri. Haec gratia concessa est, et sic pronuntio concessum. Auctoritate mea et totius Universitatis admittote ad gradum doctoris in iure civili Universitate Nostra Collegi Regalis. Congratulations. It's wonderful to have you as part of our family. Admittote ad domum convocationis. It's great to have you. Congratulations.
Dr. Patrick Graham, graduate of the University of King's College, will address Convocation.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the King's Convocation for this, I think, much undeserved honor. And Dr. Leahy, congratulations. I know you're going to be a great president. I'm afraid my pages are already mixed up. This is not unusual for someone who is reminded standing here of his FIP oral exam when Angus Johnson asked me who carried the puppets that cast the shadows on the cave wall, and I had no idea. This morning I opened my email from my friend Colin Knifick, who's a graduate of King's, telling me that Bob Dylan had won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Colin and I often trade Dylan lyrics, so we found this quite funny. But it was a reminder that Angus had given a Dylan lecture 30 years ago on the inspiration in Dylan. He laid out, in those days, albums and compared them to Homer. So it's nice to see that the Nobel Prize Committee is finally catching up to King's College. Despite my failure at my oral exam, I did end up doing, I guess, what you call creative nonfiction. But this wasn't necessarily because of FIP. Another Nobel Prize winner, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, said that he learned storytelling from sitting, listening to his mother and aunts and grandmother telling stories on his porch in Aracataca in Colombia. And my mother's here, so I have to say that anything that I've done creative nonfictionally is thanks to her. King's has played a great, an important role in my life. My wife went here. She was the first director of YouthNet. 6 of her brothers went here. She's got 8, so it's hard to keep track. Two are here today, actually. Many of my good friends have taught here, and many of my closest friends today I first knew at King's. When I say that storytelling comes from the mothers, I'm reminded of Dr. Lindbergh's wonderful book, Birdie. If you get a chance, you should read it. It's a hard book, but I haven't finished it, but it's very worthwhile so far, and it's really a story of mothers and daughters. And the main character, Birdie, it struck me, there's an image in it that reminded me of King's. Birdie lives in a very chaotic household, and she reads under the stairs, which is her room. And she goes there to be alone and escape the chaos of her life. And I thought that was an interesting and powerful image for what FIP has offered me at times in the sort of chaos that I've seen in various places. And this summer I was talking to Neil Robertson, the director of FIP, and I said, what are you trying to do with Foundation Year program? And he said, well, we're trying to turn a light on in the students. And I think what he meant was he was trying to, or the program was trying to give people a strong sense of themselves in this chaotic existence, increasingly chaotic existence, particularly with the internet. And everyone is sort of overwhelmed by images, and like Birdie is sort of trying to figure out life alone and see through the chaos. And last week, one of my roommates from King's, Jamie Briggs, is from Cape Breton, sent me a wonderful article about the friendship between Alex Colville, the painter, and George Grant, the philosopher. Some of you will remember Alex Colville and George Grant coming to King's. Colville looking like he was going to sell us some insurance, very drab, and George Grant looking like a lost homeless man with a cigarette in his mouth, who would sit in the Foundation Year program and say, "When you go to bed with Nietzsche, you know who gets pregnant." And the ash would fall down his tweed lapel. In the article, Jamie particularly liked was a comment that George Grant had made to Colville about looking at one of his paintings with his son. He said, I looked at the paintings in silent rapport. And Jamie said that reminded him of times we used to spend in Cape Breton. I house sat for Farley Mowat for a winter. His neighbor Irvin's here. And we used to roll drum tobacco and look out at the storms and in silent rapport. Jamie thought that was a great image for what we did in Cape Breton. And I was struck by that because Farley and Alex Colville and George Grant all had very difficult times in wars. And they each came back with a strong sense of purpose, but kind of broken. And Farley expressed it in this furious writing. I mean, he just wrote, trying to warn us about a coming catastrophe, environmental. Colville produced these paintings full of dread and awe, and George Grant obviously wrote about mass culture's destruction of what makes us human. And I think they were, dealing with the chaos they had seen in Europe in a way that FIP does, in this sort of trying to see through the structure is underneath that makes life worthwhile. And I always found that, quite inspirational that they, people are able to do that. And I was in Iraq for a few years. It was quite chaotic. The Americans invaded and destroyed a culture. And it was in bad shape to begin with. But I came back, fairly confused and full of chaos, feeling a bit like Birdie. And I found myself drawn to the literature of the 1930s, particularly political thrillers, crime novels, a lot of the genres that we read now, or that were developed now, that are popular, or were developed in the 30s. So I read a lot of Graham Greene, Eric Ambler. I read a lot of Rebecca West, George Orwell, a lot of W.H. Auden, the poet, who called it, the low dishonest decade of the 1930s. And what I was struck by was in the 30s, there was an argument that these people were making about the coming chaos in their lives. And they often referred to St. Augustine, which kind of surprised me. And when I looked into it, Augustine was a big figure in the 30s and 40s and 50s in public intellectual circles. Rebecca West wrote a book on him. Auden wrote a lot about Augustine. And I knew a bit of Augustine because of the Foundation Year program, Colin Starnes' lectures. He was known as Augie Poo, Professor Starnes. And I studied somewhat with Father Robert Krauss, so I knew a bit. And tomorrow's Neil Robertson's first lecture on Augustine and Phipps, so I won't even try and talk about Augustine in any serious way. But I was astounded that that they had reached back to this earlier time, obviously when the Roman Empire was collapsing, and they were drawn to Augustine because he had such a profound insight into political and psychological chaos, and particularly the way that powerful people use that chaos to manipulate others. And I noticed that there was this big discussion in the public intellectual realm by people like Christopher Hitchens and Chris Hedges about the invasion of Iraq that gradually morphed into a discussion of God and atheism. And it was interesting that there was this sort of reach out for theology at a time when you'd least expect it. And in fact, all the genres from the 30s, the political crime thrillers, detective novels, the hard-boiled detective character, have all come back and are really what makes the Scandinavian noir. It's what makes HBO and Netflix what it is today. And in fact, we have the demagogues and the populist movements. So, what was familiar to Augustine was familiar to thinkers in the 30s and now familiar to us. And it was an extraordinary gift to have an introduction to it early on. But in the end, of course, I think those books are not really about just having a practical analysis or something, or even therapeutic. I think that the ability of turning the lights on that Neil mentioned has to do with keeping our capacity to see through the chaos and to something that makes life worthwhile. And so I'd like to thank King's for this much undeserved reward. If I'd known in FIP that I was going to get this, I had several friends that have just drowned me in beer. They would have been laughing so hard. But I want to thank King's for the friendship that really comes out of the kind of learning that King's provides, and also for the silent rapport that I've shared, and of course all the conversations I've had with mentors and friends. And I should say that I did eventually learn who was carrying the images or the puppets that were against the cave wall. It was the journalists and screenwriters that I ended up becoming. So Angus, as usual, the oracle of FIP, predicts all. Anyhow, thank you very much. It's much undeserved, but much appreciated. Thank you.
Professor Tracy Lindberg, Doctor of Civil Law, will address Convocation.
Tanse, ne wake maganak, ke te tamska e nawa o ma, ke taskewa, ke pe te go te gan, egwa mina, ke pe wisamchik, ke pe pixquian, hi. What I've said to you in my language in Cree is thank you to the peoples original to this territory. Thank you to the Mi'kmaq people for allowing me safe transport into their land. Thank you to my relatives in the room, and particularly to the elder. Muskwa in my language means bear, so I shall think of her as Elder Bear. I am thankful as well to the people who invited me to come. The University of King's College has given me an honor that I'm not quite certain that I understand. I said yesterday in a conversation with students that I didn't actually expect to live beyond the age of 35. And in reflecting upon it and talking to my sister later in life as we enter the autumn of our lives, we realized that we shared that. We'd never talked about it, but it was an assumption that we knew to be true, that women, our women, us, didn't live much beyond 35. So the idea that I would be standing at the front of a university auditorium, that I would be accepting a doctorate for work that I had done is unbelievable. It's more than unbelievable. I think that it shows a recognition of a couple of things. The first is that none of us get here alone, and I'm here because I had fantastic teachers. It's a hard reconciliation for me to talk about a place where you read great books when I come from a territory, when I come from a people, when I come from a tradition where we didn't have written language, we didn't have great books. But we have great philosophers, we have great thinkers, and we have a live tradition of Indigenous intellectualism that spans across our nation and yours as well as Canadians. I have to, in standing here today, thank not only the board of directors, the executive group, and particularly the students who I'm thrilled by and inspired by as I stand here, because I consider myself still a student of others. My teachers include the late, as he was known in this world, Harold Cardinal. Dr. Cardinal taught me about honesty, kindness, and the principles of leadership from a Cree place. He also was somebody who spoke the old Cree, the high Cree, the ancient Cree, as well as the modern Cree and English, and studied and received an honorary doctorate in laws as well himself. I've also learned about ethics, good leadership, and perseverance from the leader of the Lubicon Lake Nation, Chief Bernardo Miniac, who invites me into the community to come and talk to the old people, to come and talk to the citizens, to try and understand in a way that's meaningful, not just to Canadians, not just to academics educated with Canadian substance, but for Indigenous peoples, for Cree peoples, to be able to see ourselves reflected on the books that are produced from that. I've learned from my chief, Chief Cliff Callue, about love, openness, and commitment. I've learned from my elder, Maria Campbell, about intellect, artistry, and how to pursue health at all costs. This word is an indicator of a couple of things for me as I stand here. It means that those people who ordinarily don't go to a university, never stand in a university classroom, who don't have university degrees, and in some cases don't have secondary education at all, that this university honors that. This university honors and welcomes into the community Indigenous peoples who may not necessarily appear here yet, but as a welcoming call to Indigenous peoples, you've said, we honor the people who taught Dr. Tracy Lindberg and who got her into this room. And it means that this institution honors that Indigenous intellectualism in a way that's meaningful, that has teeth, and which says that you're all into reconciliation as well. The recognition of this relationship, and I don't overstate it, I feel like everything that's ever happened to me has happened because one good person remembered me. One good person remembered my name. One fantastic individual invited me into the room. It's true about law school. It's true about Harvard. It's true about the doctoral degree It's true about my first job as a professor. Every time that I was promoted or advanced within Western systems or Western places, it was because somebody remembered that it was important to have an Indigenous person in the room. And in some cases, exceptionally important to have a Cree person in the room. And this event, this time is no different. One person recognized that it was important to have an Indigenous person in the room at the time when we are renewing our institution, the time when we're renewing our understanding of the relationship that non-Indigenous Canadians can have with Indigenous peoples. So I am the sort of fortunate beneficiary who stands here as a reminder that Indigenous peoples and Indigenous intellectualism, our philosophers, our understandings, our teachings, our laws are great too. They may not be in book form, they may not be something that you see in the everyday, but they've been invited into the room. They're invited into this space. And now that they're here, the question becomes for everyone in the room, what do we do now? I am thrilled to be the first, but I think the first is often the person who had privilege and entitlement at the outset, who was able to get to the door. So I was the first woman to get a master's degree from Harvard. I was the first person to win, I think, the gold medal. I was the first Indigenous author to be featured on Canada Reads. I was the first Indigenous woman, I think, who had a best-selling book for over 52 weeks or something like that. I'm not sure what the time is, but it isn't actually about me. It's about the teachers that I had. It's about the thirst and desire for people in the room to be able to access Indigenous stories. And as a person who considers myself so very, very blessed to have been given Indigenous stories, to be given Cree stories, to be the person who is able to translate that to both non-Indigenous and Indigenous audiences, I find myself at the helm saying, well, once you're first, what happens next? And what happens next once you've been invited to the room is the same thing that I think is one of the pillars of strength that hold up this institution. When I have sat with students and talked to them, I keep thinking, how old are these people? Because they talk like they're 40. Like, not in that jaded, mad 40, but in that fortunate, thoughtful, I don't agree with your opinion, giving you the face and telling you, I don't agree with your opinion, 40. It's a rarity. As a person who teaches graduate students and law students and Indigenous studies students for 20 years, the person who can sit before you and speak to you as an equal and who can question and ask the hard questions as a student, that's the person that I'm thrilled to be able to say is going to change this world. That's the generation that's going to take responsibility for true reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. So I am happy to be able to say I am the first person to have this honor bestowed upon me from this institution, I believe, who's Indigenous. First Cree, I'm almost certain. And now that I'm here, my job is, as it always is, to make sure that the door is open for other people. So I want people to think about who are the Mi'kmaq people from this territory who should be represented in the room? Who are the Mi'kmaq people who should be attendant, be here as students? Who are the Mi'kmaq intellectuals, theorists, practitioners, ideologists, knowledge keepers who should be co-teaching courses or presenting information to you as part of a well-rounded education? The other thing that I have to say is that when we're doing this and we're thinking, how do we get more Indigenous people into the room because we are people who matter? That conversation that I had with students was a reminder to me that the strength of what you have is the thing that keeps us alive as nations. And that's a really strong sense of community and the relationship that you build with others. And having had a vision into that or a peer into that, the understanding of how strong those relationships are, I can tell you that reconciliation is about that as well. We approach it from the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action as if it's some sort of mystical, hard-earned value system that we can sort of poke our way around. But what reconciliation really is saying, I'm a part of your community, you're a part of my community. We have a reciprocal relationship, educational, intellectual, emotional, potentially, all sorts of relationships that can come from that. But where I come from, the nation and community that I come from, the understanding of that relationship is a lawful, Cree lawful relationship, a Cree lawful engagement. So what we've done today is embarked upon the understanding that this place, you have a relationship with Indigenous people that is reciprocal. And in that reciprocity, we have to determine what the relationship is going to look like, what it's going to be like, and how we can expand upon it. It sounds hard, and it sounds difficult, and if reconciliation was easy, we would have done it by now. But it's hard work, it's messy, and we are going to make mistakes. It's the truth. We're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make each other uncomfortable, and that's going to have to be okay. Because if we aren't making each other uncomfortable, we aren't changing a thing. I am open to the possibility and to the hope that you being in the same room together today, me being in this room with you, enlivens our engagement with each other as potential relatives, as potential community members, as potential people who share space. Within that, I invite you to our nation, to come to our territory as well at Kelly Lake, and to think about what reciprocal relations look like with Indigenous peoples from across this country, across North America, across South America. I'm also aware when I come here and I talk about Cree legal traditions, now that we have a relationship, when you have a relationship that bonds us together, that we have to start thinking about the obligations that we have. And today we are willing and able and uncertain as we engage in the conversation about how it is we become better relatives to each other. And I'm so pleased to be able to say there are people in the communities, there are people across the country, there are people in this city, and potentially people on this campus who want to be here, who want to have that conversation with you, who want to be with you when you make mistakes in your reconciliation. I often say that I have to reconcile with myself before I can reconcile with my family. I have to reconcile with my family before I reconcile with my community. And I have to, my community has to reconcile with our nationhood to be able to reconcile with Canada. There's a lot of steps along the way. And I make mistakes all the time when I'm reconciling myself with those people. The thing is that we are at the point in our relationship as Indigenous and non-Indigenous people sharing space where we have to say, you get to make those mistakes, but they have to be kind ones. And kind ones mean that you do your homework, you read the books, you get there, and you're informed when you have the conversation. But that you create a space where an Indigenous person has the microphone. You create a space where the Indigenous community has a classroom. You create a space where Indigenous students believe that they're welcome to attend. And those conversations can be difficult, but they are more enriching and rewarding than anything you can imagine. I have to also mention that those one people teams that have got me in the room are useful because I've been invited to fantastic rooms and had beautiful conversations with quite lovely people. I've had hard conversations about things that matter in places I never thought I would be. But that we are at the point as well in reconciliation where we have to think not just about the one person getting somebody in the room. We have to change, alter, rebuild, reconceive of our institutions and our systems in order that they are welcoming to Indigenous knowledges, Indigenous belief, understandings, and people. So the challenge is upon all of us today to think about, here we are in an institution with systems as people who want to be relatives. And I think that the loveliness of it is that you can be that person who gets the room started. You can be that person who gets the conversation started. You can be the person who opens up the dialogue with an Indigenous person. I have been the person who's benefited from beautiful relationships with my husband, Duncan, with my stepkids, with my family, my mother, Gloria Belcourt, my father, Warren Lindbergh. My kokum, the grandmother, my mushum, never ever thought that this is where I would end up or where any of us would end up. In the list of firsts, I was the first one to go to university. I was the first one to go to grad school. I was the first one to go to law school. And I want a future where I'm not the first anything. I want a future where there's so many of us in your classrooms, so many of us in your clubs, at your church, you in our services, you at our ceremonies, where it becomes foolhardy to try and call anybody first, because as relatives and community, there are so many of us that counting one would be ridiculous. So we can count on not counting one and not being ridiculous, but what I'm asking you to do today is to invest in the fantastic possibility that we can be relatives who are mutually respectful, the fantastic possibility that we can share community together and build community together, and the fantastic possibility that we don't have to think about too many more firsts, because there's going to be thousands upon 10,000s upon 100,000s of us living around near each other respectfully. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I thank you so much to the University of King's College, your president, your new president, and the board for acknowledging Indigenous peoples in the form of me today. Hi, hi.
Would you please stand?
Our gathering today has given us much to celebrate, much to give thanks for, and on reflection, many blessings to be aware of. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you and those close to you and those whom you have not met yet peace this day and always.